Do heroes retire? It's a question rarely asked in myth or cinema, yet in real life, when the body ages and society nudges us toward quiet resignation, something stirs deep within. What if the greatest adventure doesn't happen in youth but after 60? Carl Jung, the Swiss psychiatrist and pioneer of analytical psychology, believed life was divided into two halves. The first is about establishing ourselves: career, relationships, family. The second, however, is a spiritual journey. It is here, beyond the material, where the real hero's path begins. We are conditioned to associate heroism with action, war, dragons slain before the sun sets. But after 60, the monsters are internal. They lurk in regrets, unresolved griefs, forgotten dreams. Retirement isn't an end, it's a threshold, and like any mythological hero standing before the gates of the underworld, the elderly face a choice: decay or transformation. In Jungian terms, the latter years are a return to the self, not the ego that conquered the outer world, but the deeper, wiser self that seeks wholeness. The archetype of the hero does not vanish with age, it evolves. He becomes the sage, the seer, the wounded healer. His weapon is no longer the sword, but insight. His quest is no longer conquest, but integration. What if turning 60 isn't a descent into irrelevance, but the start of the most critical act? Just as Luke Skywalker returned older and more powerful in The Last Jedi, perhaps our elders are not fading, but becoming, forging a new myth, where age is not an ending, but a new calling. Jung proposed that midlife is when the unconscious begins to demand attention. The ego, so proud of its achievements, starts to crack. Dreams become more vivid. Fears once buried resurface. It's not a breakdown, it's an invitation. Imagine you're 65, you've retired, your children have their own lives, and the world no longer seems to need you. This is the moment Jung called the second half of life, where the external journey gives way to the internal. You are now the traveler of your own psyche, and Jung offers the map. At this stage, archetypes once dormant rise: the wise old man, the crone, the shadow. You're not imagining it, the voice you hear in your dreams, the strange symbols in your thoughts. They are parts of yourself trying to be heard. Jung believed individuation, the process of becoming whole, accelerates after midlife, not before. This is where the heroic journey truly deepens. You're no longer seeking status, but truth. You are not running from death, but learning to dance with it. The unconscious, once a mystery, becomes a companion. It guides you through symbols, synchronicities, and stories from your own forgotten soul. You begin to see patterns, childhood memories that echo today's feelings, dreams that answer waking doubts. The unconscious isn't chaos. It's a vast mythological terrain, and Jung is the cartographer who assures you you're not lost. You're just beginning to see. Time, like a shadow, follows us. But after 60, it seems to lean in closer, whispering truths we tried to forget. The mirror no longer flatters. The body stiffens, friends disappear. Yet the greatest loss is often unspoken, a sense that we are no longer becoming, only declining. Jung, however, saw this differently. He saw aging not as a fall, but as an ascent. If we dare to confront the parts of ourselves we've ignored. He called this confrontation meeting the shadow. It's everything we've repressed. Ambition, anger, sexuality, fear, love, all the colors we denied ourselves in the first half of life. After 60, the shadow is harder to escape. The noise of career and family fades and silence sets in. In that silence, the forgotten self speaks. Why didn't you write that book? Why did you betray that dream? These are not accusations, they're openings. To meet the shadow is to reclaim energy. The things we suppress don't die, they fester. But faced honestly, they transform. The retired man who feared intimacy may become the storyteller who teaches vulnerability. The widow who buried her rage may become a healer. The hero's journey after 60 is not to slay dragons, but to integrate them. Aging is not passive. It is the most active, spiritual challenge we face. And those who dare to walk this path, to look into the shadow of time and not flinch, may find that the light waiting on the other side is brighter than anything youth ever offered. Most stories tell of a hero who answers a call in youth, a trumpet that blares, a crisis that erupts. But what if there's a second call, softer and stranger, that comes when the world assumes we've already played our part? This is the late call. Jung argued that the psyche doesn't stop evolving after midlife. Quite the opposite. It begins to demand more authenticity. That quiet urge to learn the piano at 65, to write your memoir at 70, to forgive your father at 80, these are calls from the soul. They may not come with fireworks, but they burn nonetheless. In mythology, the second call is often more difficult. The hero is no longer naive. They've been wounded. Their steps are slower, but their heart is wiser. Odysseus returned to Ithaca, but his journey didn't end. He was restless. He left again, older, seeking something deeper than glory, seeking meaning. Modern society rarely speaks of this second call. Retirement is painted as a sunset, not a new dawn. Yet many find themselves haunted by an unfinished story. They feel a pull, not toward ambition, but toward integration, a desire to understand why they lived the life they did, to make peace with it, to use it. This is not a crisis of age. It's a call to fullness. It might arrive through a dream, a death, or a diagnosis, but when it comes, it's unmistakable, a whisper saying, "There's more." Dragons in myths are never just monsters. They represent what we fear to face in ourselves. In youth, slaying them means proving our strength. In later life, facing them means embracing our vulnerability. At 70, the dragon doesn't breathe fire. It speaks in silence. It asks, "What have you become?" And, more hauntingly, "What did you avoid becoming?" These are questions few want to answer, but the courageous do. Jung viewed these dragons as aspects of the unconscious, the denied self, the unfulfilled artist, the lover you never dared become, the father you failed to be. When we're older, we can no longer outrun them, but we can turn to face them. This is the new battlefield, not the boardroom, not the family conflict, but the internal reckoning. It's sitting in a room with your regrets and refusing to look away. It's rewriting the narrative of your life, not to erase it, but to own it. The dragon at 70 demands humility and boldness. It asks you to descend into memory, extract meaning from loss, and find gold in the ruins. This is not a regression. It's the mature stage of the journey, where the real treasure is not a crown, but clarity. When the dragon is faced, not slain, something miraculous happens. It bows, and from its eyes you see your own reflected, finally whole. In most hero stories, the mentor appears early. Obi-Wan Kenobi, Gandalf, Dumbledore. But what if, in real life, the mentor only reveals himself later, from within? Jung believed the archetype of the wise old man or woman lives in all of us. In youth, we project this wisdom onto teachers or guides. But after 60, when external authorities lose their shine, the mentor must rise from within. You begin to hear a different voice, not the ego that seeks applause, but the self that whispers truth. This voice is patient, paradoxical, often confusing. It tells you to slow down, to listen, to surrender. It doesn't crave attention, it demands depth. This internal mentor doesn't come easily. It often emerges through suffering, solitude, and silence. But once it speaks, you realize it has always been there, waiting, watching, growing. Stronger as the noise of the world faded, Carl Jung himself experienced this voice in his later years through dreams, symbols, and inner dialogues. He didn't teach from theory. He taught from experience, and he taught that aging, when embraced, turns the outer hero into an inner sage. The final stage of the hero's journey is not conquest, but guidance, not action, but wisdom, not legacy, but presence. And in that quiet presence, the true mentor arises, not to teach others, but to accompany oneself to the threshold of meaning. What if death is not an end, but a metaphorical transformation, the final initiation in a life filled with forgotten rites? Carl Jung believed that symbolic death was necessary for psychological rebirth, and that this process often accelerates with age. We fear death not just because of its finality, but because we live avoiding the smaller deaths along the way, the death of identities, of roles, of illusions. Retirement is one such death, the empty nest. The lost spouse, the fading nameplate on a door. These are not just losses, they are thresholds. In myth, before a hero is reborn, they must descend into caves, oceans, underworlds. They must die to who they were to become who they are. So it is in later life. The old self, the provider, the achiever, the one who was needed, begins to crumble. And beneath that rubble lies a soul unburdened. Jung saw this symbolic death not as despair, but liberation. It strips us, it purifies, it allows us to ask, perhaps for the first time, who am I without all this? And when that question echoes long enough in the soul, a rebirth follows. Quiet, subtle, but unmistakable. You begin to live not for others' expectations, but for inner truth. You are no longer building. You are becoming. This is not just aging, this is initiation, a right denied in modern culture, but essential to the soul. Only those who pass through symbolic death can be truly reborn, not into a younger self, but into a truer one. The first half of life, Jung said, is about building the ego. The second half is about surrendering it. But surrender is not defeat. It's the door to the self. In youth, we gather titles, stories, power. We build the structure of I. But past 60, the scaffolding begins to wobble. The job ends, the children leave, the mirror lies. What remains? The self, deeper, older, eternal. Jung defined the self as the totality of the psyche, conscious and unconscious. It is the divine center, the internal compass. It is not ego-driven. It does not need to be seen. It only needs to be heard. This shift from ego to self is the ultimate treasure of the hero's late journey. It brings not glory, but grace, not applause, but peace. The noise quiets, and what's left is clarity. The world may no longer look to you for answers, but you begin to hear your own. This is individuation, the goal of life, Jung believed, and it is rarely achieved in youth. It is the art of becoming whole, not perfect, of accepting the broken pieces and letting them form a mosaic more beautiful than perfection ever was. The reward is not external. It's internal congruence, a knowing smile, a peaceful silence, a life that, while not free of pain, finally makes sense. We think of rebels as young, but what if the most radical rebellion comes with age? In Jungian psychology, aging can reactivate the archetype of the trickster, the one who defies convention, breaks patterns, exposes truth. In the elderly, this becomes the rebel elder, the one who dares to remove the masks society gave them. They no longer care for approval. They speak truths others avoid. They laugh at absurdity. They remember who they were before the world told them who to be. And they begin to embody it again, not carelessly but courageously. This is not regression. It's revelation. It's the re-emergence of the soul's authentic rhythm. Jung himself embraced this. He wrote and painted freely in his old age. He questioned religion, science, and psychology alike. He was not bitter. He was bold. In every culture, the elder once held a sacred place, not as an authority figure, but as a disruptor of lies. The one who reminded the tribe what mattered. Today, our culture hides its elders and loses its wisdom. But those who reclaim this archetype light a fire. They teach not by preaching, but by living freely. They are proof that freedom is not a youthful trait. It is a human one, reclaimed most fiercely at the edge of life. There comes a point in every journey where the hero, having faced dragons, descended into shadow and emerged transformed, no longer walks for themselves. They walk for others. This is the moment the hero becomes the guide. Carl Jung recognized this archetypal transformation. In the first half of life, the hero's journey is self-focused, the quest to find one's place in the world, to forge identity, to prove value. But once the treasure is found, the true test emerges. Can it be given away? After 60, many experience a strange pull, not toward new achievements, but toward transmission. Grandparents no longer seek to build empires, they want to tell stories. Retired teachers, doctors, artists, they begin mentoring, writing, remembering. This is not nostalgia. It's mythic. It's the shift from warrior to sage, from protagonist to shepherd of others. In mythology, the hero who fails to transition into guide often becomes bitter, lost, or tyrannical. Think of King Lear. But the one who accepts the mantle of mentor becomes immortal through influence. Obi-Wan Kenobi dies, but his legacy shapes Luke. Dumbledore fades, but Harry grows stronger. Legacy, in Jungian terms, is not material. It's psychic energy passed on, wisdom distilled through pain, love refined by time. It is storytelling at its most sacred, and those who listen, the younger generation, are not just learning, they're remembering, because the guide awakens ancient truths already within them. To become the guide is to accept mortality not as defeat, but as fulfillment. You are no longer the center, but the spark that lights others, and in that surrender, you find a power deeper than any you held before, the power to echo beyond your own lifetime. In youth, time is the enemy, always slipping, rushing, running out. But after 60, if embraced with awareness, time becomes something else entirely, an ally, an alchemist, a sculptor of meaning. Carl Jung saw time not as linear, but symbolic. In later life, it begins to bend. The past resurfaces in dreams. Future anxieties give way to deep reflection. Moments stretch. Memories merge. What matters is no longer quantity, but quality. The soul starts speaking in poetry, not in deadlines. Experience, when viewed through this lens, becomes gold. Not the kind you spend, the kind you are. The old man who sits in silence is not doing nothing. He is listening to decades. The older woman who walks slowly carries the rhythm of generations. Their wisdom is not taught, it radiates. We live in a culture obsessed with youth. It celebrates speed, noise, novelty. But in doing so, it misses the deeper rhythm, the slow fermentation of understanding, the ripening of soul. Jung believed that the second half of life was when we finally begin to digest the first half. Time, now unburdened by ambition, becomes sacred. You begin to notice the sun more, the sound of birds, the softness of a grandchild's hand. These are not cliches, they are awakenings, because only those who have lost enough know what it means to cherish. Time becomes a mirror. You no longer fear what you see. You begin to see not a failing body, but a fulfilled journey, not decay, but design. And you realize time has not taken from you. It has refined you. In the quiet hours of later life, something curious happens. Dreams return. Not just the ones we chase in waking life, but the ones that visit us at night. Mysterious, symbolic, vivid. Carl Jung paid close attention to these dreams. He believed that after 60, the unconscious begins to prepare us for something extraordinary. We think of dreams as childish things, fantasies to grow out of. But to Jung, dreams in old age were sacred communications from the self. They don't guide us toward career moves or romantic choices. They speak of legacy, death, transcendence. They are the final lessons of the psyche. Many elders report recurring symbols, rivers, bridges, ancestral homes, animals never seen before. These are not random, they are archetypal. A bridge might represent transition, not between places, but between worlds. An old house may be the psyche itself, asking to be explored. A snake may no longer threaten, it may transform. In youth, dreams are chaotic, urgent. In age, they become orchestral, layered with meaning. Jung saw this as the soul's preparation for death, not as fear, but as continuation. A reunification with the collective unconscious, the great source. These dreams often bring peace. They show loved ones long gone. They offer closure without words. They stir creativity. Elders begin to paint, write, dance, not for others, but for the self. Because something inside knows. The boundary between waking and dreaming is thinner now. And in that space, eternity breathes. To dismiss these visions is to miss the most intimate conversation we will ever have. The one between the conscious self and the eternal self. And those who listen, truly listen, often find that life after 60 is not dimming. It's deepening. The dreams say so. Every mythic journey ends with a return, but not all returns are physical. For the hero beyond 60, the return is often internal, a reconciliation of the past, a grounding in the present, and a gaze toward eternity. Carl Jung understood that late life demands integration, not resolution, not erasure, but a weaving together of all that one has been, the triumphs and failures, loves and losses, wounds and wonders, into a coherent tapestry of meaning. This is the return to oneself, fully seen. It is not easy. Memories come like ghosts, some welcome, others heavy. Regrets knock gently but persistently, and yet the wise elder does not flinch. They open the door. They invite the younger versions of themselves to sit by the fire. The angry young man, the fearful young girl, the grieving parent, the naive dreamer, all are welcomed. This act of reconciliation is sacred. It is not sentimental. It is mythic. It is what the great sages of all traditions sought, not escape from life, but full embrace. To return to the village, as in every myth, with the treasure, the wisdom, the truth. But in this case, the village is the soul itself. And then, perhaps most mysteriously, comes the glimpse of eternity. Not as a religious doctrine, but as a knowing that something vast, timeless, has lived through us. That we were not merely our careers or our choices, but vessels of a larger story. To return is to remember, to reconcile is to forgive, and to stand at the edge of time, unafraid, is to finally be free. There is a dangerous myth in modern culture that after a certain age, life plateaus, that meaning diminishes, that the peak is behind. But this is not mythic truth, this is market propaganda, because in real mythology and in Jungian psychology, the journey never ends, it transforms. The transformation is subtle. It is no longer about action, but essence, not about doing, but being. The hero after 70 no longer chases dragons. They tame them. They do not climb mountains, they become them. Their presence shifts rooms, their words linger, their silence teaches. Jung spoke of the self as a mandala, a symbol of wholeness. In later life, one does not expand outward, but inward. Like a tree that no longer grows in height, but deepens its roots, the soul thickens. It gains gravity. It begins to radiate something sacred, presence. This stage of the journey is often invisible to others. The world may no longer celebrate the elder, but the myth still moves. The transformation is happening in dreams, in reflections, in the quiet moments between breaths. And then, perhaps without warning, another door opens. One we did not know was there. A new journey, not of earth, but of soul. Death is not the end of the hero's path. It is its metamorphosis. As the caterpillar never sees the butterfly, so too do we not yet glimpse what we are becoming. But the myth assures us. The journey goes on. There is a myth living in every human. It doesn't fade with age. It ripens. It becomes clearer as the noise recedes. You were never just a person. You were always a story, a hero's journey unfolding in real time. Jung believed that the myths we tell, and of gods, monsters, lovers, quests, are not just entertainment. They are reflections of our deepest truths. And the elderly, far from being past their prime, are the living embodiment of those truths. Every wrinkle is a line from a sacred text. Every scar is an emblem of victory. Every sigh holds the weight of decades. The hero who has aged is not diminished. They are transfigured. Think of Gandalf, not as the old man, but as the spirit of wisdom. Think of Yoda, not as frail, but as the embodiment of mastery. In every culture, the elder was once seen as the anchor of myth, the one who held the memory of the tribe. Today we must reclaim this. We must tell new stories, or rather, remember the old ones, where the hero doesn't fade but glows, where the climax of the story isn't youth but illumination, where the soul is not judged by its pace but by its depth. You, elder hero, are not obsolete. You are myth incarnate. Your life is a map. Your dreams are sacred. Your presence is legacy. Even with wrinkles, you remain eternal. What does it mean to live a complete life? Perhaps it is not found in the relentless pace of youth or in the accolades of midlife. Perhaps true completeness begins only when time slows and we begin to see with the eyes of eternity. After this entire journey we've taken together through the depths of Jungian psychology, the archetypal stages of life, the echoes of myth and memory, we arrive at a truth more profound than theory, more sacred than intellect. The soul is not bound by time, and love is the only thing that outlives us. If you've stayed with us this far, you've already walked through metaphorical caves and mountains. You've heard the call, felt the tension, stared into the eyes of inner dragons, and hopefully seen your reflection in the heroes of old. But now, as we close this chapter, I ask you not just to think, but to feel. Let your heart speak. Let your soul breathe. Because in the end, all great journeys lead not to conquest, but to connection, to love, to meaning, and to something infinitely greater than ourselves. Carl Jung understood something we rarely speak about today, that every psychological journey is also a spiritual one. He didn't claim to have all the answers, but he opened the door for us to look within, to face our own darkness, and to move toward light. But even Jung, in his vast exploration of the human psyche, pointed to a mystery beyond analysis, a source, a center, a divine presence that moves through every human life. That presence, some call it the self, others the divine, the infinite, the source. I would humbly like to name it for what it is: God. Not the God of angry religion or manipulative dogma, but the God who is love, who is presence, who has walked with us through every breath we've taken, even when we didn't know it. A God who does not demand perfection, but who offers a home. A God who, in the midst of our fears, offers peace. And who, in the final chapter of every life story, whispers, "You are not alone." You see, we live in a world that constantly tells us we must earn our worth, that we must hustle, fight, and prove. But what if you were already worthy, simply because you exist? What if you were already loved, before you accomplished anything, before you failed anything? What if the great myth behind all myths is not just the journey of the hero, but the story of a God who became man, walked among us, suffered with us, and gave his life so we could be free? There is a passage, ancient and profound, that contains within it the entire arc of the greatest story ever told. You may have heard it before. For God so loved the world that he gave his one and only Son, that whoever believes in him shall not perish but have eternal life. That is John 3:16. It is not just a verse, it is a portal into the deepest love the universe has ever known. Think about that. For God so loved the world. That means you, right now, wherever you are, whatever you've done, however far you feel from God, from peace, from hope. He has not moved away. He is still here. He always has been. He knows your fears, your regrets, your silent prayers. And he is not angry. He is not disappointed. He's waiting for you to say yes. Yes to love, yes to healing, yes to forgiveness, yes to a relationship with Jesus Christ, not as a distant figure or a religious symbol, but as your Savior, your friend, your guide, the one who conquered death, not with power but with mercy, the one who faced the ultimate shadow and rose again with light for all of us. Maybe your life has felt like a journey without a map. Maybe you've spent decades searching for something, anything that lasts. Or maybe you've achieved everything and still feel the emptiness echoing in your heart. I want to tell you, gently but truly, nothing fills that void but him. Not success, not pleasure, not approval, only love, eternal love. And the beautiful truth is this: you don't have to climb a mountain to find him. You don't have to be perfect to approach him. You only have to open your heart and say, Jesus, I believe, I trust, I receive you. You can do that right now, wherever you are, in silence or out, loud, with a whisper or with tears. There are no magic words, only sincerity. Something like this: Jesus, I know I've tried to live life my own way. I've made mistakes. I've carried wounds. I've searched and searched. But today, I surrender. I believe that you are the Son of God. I believe you died for me and rose again. I receive your love. I receive your forgiveness. Be my Lord. Be my Savior. Walk with me. Guide me. Change me. I give you my heart. If you prayed that, truly, deeply, welcome. Welcome not just to a new belief, but to a new beginning. Welcome to grace. Welcome to the greatest story ever told, now unfolding in your life. And if you're still not sure, still wrestling, still questioning, know this: you are loved no less. God is not in a hurry. He meets you where you are. He speaks your language. He knows your story. And he is patient, always. Before we part, I want to speak to your heart, not as a narrator, but as someone who cares. You matter. Your life is not a mistake. Your pain is not invisible. Your questions are not a burden. You were created in love, for love, by love. And every breath you've taken is a line in a sacred poem. Do not let this world numb you. Do not let fear dictate your steps. Do not settle for a life of quiet despair. There is more, so much more. If this video touched your heart, I want to invite you to be part of this growing community. Please, take a moment to like this video. It helps more people discover these messages. Subscribe to our channel if you haven't already, and hit the notification bell so you never miss another journey like this. And most importantly, drop a comment. Tell us where you're watching from. Share what spoke to you. Tell your story. You never know who you might encourage just by showing up and speaking from the heart. This space is not just content, it's connection, it's family. It's a circle of seekers and storytellers, of questioners and quiet believers. And you are welcome here. As we bring this story to a close, I want you to remember something. The journey doesn't end here. It continues in your thoughts, in your dreams, in your conversations, and perhaps in a new chapter with God. Keep exploring, keep listening, keep opening, because the hero's journey, your journey, is sacred and it's far from over. Thank you for walking with us. We'll see you in the next video.